Rookies to draft, rookies to avoid. Can Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter live up to the hype? And a whole lot more with special guest Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Life on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Fantastic guest joining me today on Peacock and Williamson. No Williamson, he's off sending his son to college, to the University of Kentucky. And so probably sipping on some bourbon as well as we speak and getting everything settled in there. But I got a fantastic guest instead, Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Life. I'm excited to talk your specialty, Thor. Rookies in fantasy this year, what we can expect, who you're targeting in your fantasy leagues. And I've got some big questions on some specific players, and maybe even we'll throw in some second-year quarterbacks, one in particular that I know you know a lot about on today's program. So first of all, Thor, thanks for jumping on with me here. And we got to start with Ashton Genty. I just saw a lot of him last week. He played my 49ers, and I do cover the 49ers here on the network. So watched that intently. And it was fun to watch him play. And you're never sure exactly how things are going to translate from college to the NFL. Obviously, ridiculous college football player and just a rock of a human being. And really, you think, okay, dynamic, but maybe almost more of a power player in the NFL than like, I'm going to make you miss guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly going to handle heavy usage, just like we saw Boise State. He has to go real early in redraft leagues and in my opinion should be the first pick in dynasty drafts. But in my own personal fantasy rankings, which I don't release, I just have them, but I can say I have Genti 4th on mine. And I would even consider him at 3 for this coming season. But yeah, a guy that handles heavy usage. He's impossible to tackle. He sent the letter to the NFL like a couple of days before the draft that ended with something like go and draft the guy that you can't tackle, and I'm the hardest one to tackle. That's absolutely true. His broken tackle numbers in college were prodigious, and people try to poo-poo it of like, oh, it was at Boise State and it was the Mountain West. Go and watch the Penn State game from the playoff. Penn State that had this utterly ludicrous front seven fronted by Abdul Carter and stocked with NFL players, and they stacked the box against Genti. There was one run where he broke 6 tackles on one run against Penn State. Obviously, Penn State's defense was designed to stop him in that game, but he was still able to grind out yards. And the other thing I wanted to mention about Genti is he's a much better receiver than he gets credit for, because last year Boise took away the times where they would throw to him that they had done the previous year in order to try to give Genti a shot to break Barry Sanders' single season rushing record. That was part of the pitch to Genti to return to Boise State. Last offseason, Boise State had to fend off a whole bunch of Power 4 suitors that were throwing NIL bags at him. I heard a couple stories behind the scenes. There was some ludicrous aggression early on there in the portal. Genti never officially entered it because Boise State was really able to quick to throw together not only a package to keep him, but also the promise of, well, we're going to convert that usage into the rushing, make that run at Barry Sanders. He didn't quite get there. But going back to the receiving thing, the year before, 2023, Genti was the best receiving back that we had in all of college football. They deployed him out of the slot a bit. They even deployed him out wide a bit. And then, of course, the routes he ran out of the backfield. Ashton Genty, as a junior in high school at Frisco High, took over the starting slot receiver job for a guy named Marvin Mims, who had just gone to college. Genti had to play slot receiver that year because Frisco High at the time, they had a running back that was about to sign D1. His name was Jaden Nixon. He ended up going to Oklahoma State. But because of that, Genti had to essentially wait his turn. But he was all district, all state in Texas as a slot receiver, as a junior in high school. And then, of course, as a senior, he utterly dominated. And Boise State ended up holding on to his signature there. But Ashton Genty is going to get ludicrous workload right away, both as a runner and as a receiver. Very excited to see him. And yeah, he immediately jumps to the forefront when you're thinking about either redraft leagues for this year or dynasty fantasy leagues going forward.
So we're talking standard leagues. We're talking PPR leagues. He's in Pete Carroll's roster. So usage is going to be there. He can handle the usage with the way he's built. There's really nothing not to like about Ashton Genty as a fantasy player. You're talking about him third or fourth, so you're drafting him over guys that are like household names at the running back position then, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got him one spot ahead of Jameer Gibbs. I got him 2 spots ahead of Justin Jefferson, Barkley. I got him over those guys. The only guys I got him behind is Bijan, Jamar Chase, and CeeDee Lamb. And again, even against those 2 receivers, if I'm actually on the clock and Bijan's gone, Genti becomes in the discussion for me right then. So yeah, I'm crazy bullish on Genti starting out right away.
That's awesome. And so does the tread on the tires of guys like Christian McCaffrey and, obviously missed most of last year, and then you project a year ahead of a guy who touched the ball 300 plus times last year with Saquon Barkley, does that factor in for you in your leagues? Or you're like, yeah, that guy he hit that 300 plus touch threshold last year. I don't want him this year.
It does. Yeah. I mean, both the injury stuff and then, the circumstance that we have with each guy's usage, the guy who, for me, that comes to the fore with this year in fantasy is Devin Achane. Achane is a guy that I was avoiding. I think he goes in a second round or so. I don't have him on one fantasy team. We were at Treasure Island here in town. I live in Minneapolis last weekend doing a fantasy football training camp for a show I do called Fantasy Football Weekly. And Achane was like my sort of stay away guy, like top couple rounds. And I was talking there about, for a guy who has the frame that he does, it's a little lithe, kind of skinnier type running back, obviously has explosion in spades. But Miami, who initially had a plan for Achane that sort of mirrored what we saw from him a little bit at Texas A&M, trying to give other runners the work as well to limit the touches to try to keep him healthy for the entire season. Last year, Miami couldn't help themselves anymore. And Achane got up near 300 touches. I don't know about that. And, a couple of days after we did that show, then there was a report that he had gotten nicked up in their practice or their preseason game or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely something that you have to pay attention to. With Ashton Genty, going back to him, it's a guy who, because of his movement, he doesn't take flush shots as much as sort of analogous running backs. I mentioned the broken tackle thing, but it's beyond that. The movement and turning flush tackle attempts into off angle attempts. He does take punishment for sure. And of course, in the NFL, if he ends up getting 300 plus touches, he will. But this is a guy that has a lot more body armor on him. And he knows to take that, to minimize it. So minimize the defender's odds of actually getting him to the ground.
You mentioned Jameer Gibbs there, that you might have Genti over Jameer Gibbs. And I've been a little bit lower on Jameer Gibbs, not because of the talent, but just because, they like to have the 2-back plan, which I think is a great plan in the NFL. So is he going to get the usage? Is he going to get the workload? And if he did, could he handle it? And would that efficiency really start to drop for someone like Jameer Gibbs, as awesome as he is?
Yeah, my concern with Jameer Gibbs, it has less to do with Jameer Gibbs and more to do with the Lions offense as a whole. That, as they've had those Colossus offensive lines going back to literally the time that they drafted Jameer Gibbs. Jameer Gibbs has always played behind good offensive lines in the NFL. And now you lose Frank Ragnow, one of the better centers that we had in the league. You also lose Kevin Zeitler, who was a very reliable guard for a long time. Your interior offensive line is not going to be as good as it has been in the past. We don't know how much it's going to depreciate. We just know that it will. So that's issue number one. And then I think losing both the coordinators, that's a big deal. Losing Ben Johnson is a big deal. And if you have less possessions this coming season and the team as a whole is gaining less yards, there's less points put on the board. For a guy like Jameer Gibbs, where he needs the dingers, you just wonder, is there going to be opportunities deprived from him because of that switch? And then also the new play caller we got there with the Lions, is he going to be as creative getting Jameer Gibbs the ball in space to allow for him the opportunity to hit those dingers? It's just a few too many questions for me to take Jameer Gibbs in the top 3. Like I've seen in a couple of drafts. I don't hate him, but I would need to get him, that 5, 6, 7 type spot to draft Jameer Gibbs this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on him. I was blown away by some of the numbers I saw with Frank Ragnow, what the offense looked like with and without him. And that was with Ben Johnson, right? And with Zeitler. And so that's a really big loss for the Detroit Lions. I'm fascinated to see how that turns out and how things look for Detroit here this year. And if it becomes a little bit more of a restructuring, retooling year for them. I want to get into maybe some of their division opponents. And there's some really interesting players to talk about in the NFC North. More with Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Life. We're talking pass catchers, some league winners and sleepers for your fantasy drafts next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and season hunches. Whether you think your team is going to win the big one this year or you got a dark horse MVP, for just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So call your MVP now. Eyeing a long shot division winner, or maybe you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off. This is your moment. You want to take a flyer on that guy to get over the hump, maybe win the MVP. You think that Joe Burrow is going to overcome all the obstacles set forth for him in Cincinnati, get over the hump and win the big one. Still need to see it from Josh Allen. Maybe it's his year. Maybe it's Lamar's turn. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is just one day, August 26th on FanDuel, and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. The next name I want to go to, though, is Travis Hunter. Obviously, superstar athlete, but I feel like the real life football player and how good he could be versus the fantasy football player, it doesn't really match up. And I don't know if you can get a return on what you have to pay for to draft Travis Hunter as a rookie in your fantasy league.
I'm bullish on Travis Hunter, I have to say. And, what's interesting, you go back to April, my job, my day job, it's NFL draft analyst. And like in April, you get all kinds of different phone calls and you hear all different kinds of things. And one of the things that I'd heard earlier on that month was that the Jaguars were seriously sniffing around using their first round pick on a singular offensive superstar type talent for Liam Cohen. We all thought that was Genti. Liam Cohen, I think he had said 75-80% of offensive snaps. He wanted Travis Hunter out there this year. You're going to have a better offense there. You have a healthy Trevor Lawrence, and then the fact that they have Brian Thomas on the other side, those guys are going to be like Batman and Robin together. Thomas, it turns out he can do all kinds of stuff. In college with Jaden Daniels there at LSU, we saw a lot of the deep shots with him, but it turns out he can win at all 3 sectors of the field. And now you can't just double team him every time because you got Travis Hunter running around out there. But if Travis Hunter indeed plays 80% of the offensive snaps, like Cohen said, I think he's going to have a big rookie year in terms of offensive stats.
Just ridiculously talented guy. I can't wait to see him play. So one of the latest risers we've seen that I think we definitely have to get into here is Jacory Crosky-Meritt, Bill, as he has come to be known now, #Bill. There was reports early with with him having a good camp. It's like, okay, 7th round guy, kind of buried on the depth chart though. Be a really nice sleeper, maybe last round of your fantasy leagues, or a guy that's going to be on your watch list. And climbing ADP now with the news that Brian Robinson could be on the way out, and all of a sudden maybe he's even RB1. Talk to me about Bill and what we expect from him as a rookie. Where do you draft him at this point, and how high is he going now?
I'm curious. Do you have that ADP number, like the current one on him?
I don't see what the ADP is. I know it's climbed a lot, but I don't know exactly where it is right now.
Yeah. So in my personal rankings right now, I have Jacory Crosky-Meritt 82nd, which I would have to assume is a decent jump above even what his current ADP is. Yeah. I don't care. I want to come out of my draft with Jacory Crosky-Meritt. I know Jacory Crosky-Meritt's game. I know the play calling tendencies of the Commanders, and I know Brian Robinson, his game as well. Wasn't a surprise to me that they said that they were going to put him on the trade block, and we'll see if anything ends up happening, with regards to Brian Robinson. I think Jacory Crosky-Meritt is a better stylistic fit next to Austin Eckler. Jacory Crosky-Meritt, the big nitpick in his on-field game is we've never seen him catch the ball. When he was with New Mexico, the time, when we saw him out there, especially his last season when he broke out, that offense, they don't really throw it all. They certainly did not throw it to the running back. So it was a total black box of his evaluation, as well as pass blocking, because again, they didn't do it a ton. And as you know, the other reason that Jacory Crosky-Meritt ended up falling to the 7th round is because the NCAA absolutely screwed him last year with an eligibility issue. That's one of the most ridiculous things you'll ever hear. I'm not even going to get into the reasoning for it, but if anyone's curious out there, go and look up the reasoning the NCAA gave to not play that kid last year. Utterly ludicrous. but that's the reason why he ends up falling down. The thing that Crosky-Meritt is really good at, it is mirroring very, very quick footwork. He's very, very shifty, and he has good vision. And then he has enough. He's not like it's not Jameer Gibbs type speed, but he has enough speed to get behind into the third level and then hit dingers. It's not a slow-footed guy. He has long speed as well. You see the explosive things, but you also, just day in and week in and week out in the NFL, what they're going to appreciate is the efficiency, because he is going to at least get what's blocked for him. But because of his ability to make people miss, how slippery he is in between the tackles, it's just the footwork is just really, really sudden. And it's just really difficult, downhill defenders coming for him, trying to square him up. It becomes a really difficult thing, especially with the feel and the vision that he has as well. I think this is already a done deal. I think he has already usurped Brian Robinson. I think that was telegraphed by the reports coming out that Washington was shopping him. I think the backfield this year is Crosky-Meritt, and then of course Austin Eckler coming out on passing downs. That is the way that I'm ranking Crosky-Meritt. That's just what I think it's going to be.
So who do you have in between Genti and Crosky-Meritt with the running backs? Then you got Omarion Hampton. I was a huge fan. I thought Trayvon Henderson was the RB2 in the draft. I just loved how explosive he was. The way he would be able to come in right away and not have a problem picking up, blitzes and pass rushers. I thought it was going to be really important for an NFL team and being able to get on the field early. And he's looked explosive so far with the Patriots. So he's a guy I'm targeting a lot of my teams. You got RJ Harvey's looking good and had some great reports in camp. Obviously he's a phenomenal running back class. So who else are you targeting in your leagues of those guys?
Yeah, Hampton. I'm super bullish on Hampton. I have Hampton 22nd in my rankings, which is probably higher than dang near anyone in the my industry or whatever. But this Omarion Hampton, if Jim Harbaugh was to create a player in a lab, it would look like Omarion Hampton. The way that Jim Harbaugh plays football, Omarion Hampton is just such a perfect fit for it. He can handle the workload. He's going to get you the 3+ yards every run. And of course, you have the opportunity for more Omarion Hampton runs in the mid 4.4s, even though he's enormous. He's Omarion Hampton. They would have to kick him out of the weight room. Wherever he's from, somewhere out there on the East Coast, he shattered every record that they had in their. There's this story about in their high school weight room. Every name is Omarion Hampton. They just couldn't get him out of there, and now he's just this sort of colossus. But he has long speed as well. Of course, he can break tackles. Again, it's a Jim Harbaugh dude. Omarion Hampton going to get 300 touches in that offense this coming season. And around the goal line, it's going to be the Omarion Hampton show as well. So love him. TreVeyon Henderson, I moved up in mine to 43, which I think is reasonably bullish. I've been noticing something with the way that New England is talking about TreVeyon Henderson, the way some of his teammates are. And of course, people have seen the flash plays, the punt return touchdown, these sorts of things. But it seems to me that New England might do something this coming season that I think long-term is problematic, but in the short term, it would be fabulous news for fantasy owners. And I'm going to rewind the clock to 3 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, because this same thing played out. At that time, TreVeyon Henderson was a consensus 5-star recruit coming out of Virginia. He could have gone anywhere that he wanted. He chose Ohio State. Not only did he win the RB1 role right away, Ohio State gave him all the touches as a true freshman, and he was awesome. Put up absolutely enormous stats. Year 2, Ohio State tried to do the same thing with TreVeyon Henderson. You're going to be the bell cow again. You're the whole offense. And TreVeyon Henderson got nicked up. He was nicked up throughout the season. It was this injury, it was that injury, this injury, that injury, trying to come back. Now he's nicked up again. Then last offseason, Ohio State goes out and throws an NIL bag at Quinshon Judkins. The idea being, if we share the workload, we have a better chance to not only have TreVeyon Henderson healthy down the stretch, but we can just have him focus on the things that he's the best at. And what he's good at, it's outside the tackle stuff, hitting dingers. It's the receiving work, of course. And he's also an awesome pass blocker. And he's okay. He's solid between the tackles. He's not Omarion Hampton between the tackles. He can do a little bit for you, but you could sort of have him focusing on that other stuff and not taking that unnecessary punishment between the tackles. That's what they ended up giving to Judkins. The whole reason that I'm saying this is I am already starting to see it monitoring Patriots camp of when the Patriots took Travion Henderson, my thing with my job as a draft analyst was, this is a great pick. He's a great stylistic fit with Ramondre Stevenson, and those guys, of course, are going to share the workload. I'm not convinced of that anymore. I think Travion Henderson might steal most of that workload. And there was a day or two ago on Twitter, there was a video of Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson telling the media together. They were standing right next to each other, sharing the same microphone, saying that, we're both happy sharing the workload. Like, we'd be totally fine with sharing the workload. And it's like, yeah, because you guys are RB2 and RB3. They already know it. You can already tell. Again, this might be long-term problematic if New England expects Travion Henderson 17 games a week going forward, multiple seasons, to be the bell cow. I think eventually they will have to have him share the workload, but I'm starting to get really, my antennas are going up of, is this year, are they going to try it? Are they going to try to roll the clock back to true freshman year at Ohio State and see if they can get him through the season? But because of these things, I think he's getting more workload than I initially suspected. So I had to bump him up.
What do you do with Judkins right now?
I don't want Judkins. I know I've been nice to the other guys, so I'll throw some cold water now. Okay. Judkins, I got like 110 in my list. Like, he's going to get taken before I pick. I don't own Quinshon Judkins on any teams. I like Quinshon Judkins fine. Like, vision and feel are like his two good things, and he also has the quick feet in between the tackles. Outside the tackles, I want someone else doing that work, just like we saw last year at Ohio State with Travion. And then Judkins doesn't contribute really on passing downs. People will try to claim that he does. It's just dump offs, screens, and the occasional swing. But you can have other people do that as good or better, and also guys that can run routes downfield. I don't love Judkins in the passing game, so that's why it sort of raised my eyebrow when the Browns ended up taking Dylan Sampson on earlier on day 3, because Dylan Sampson, we know he is a good pass down back. That's a guy that can catch the ball. It's also a guy that we know can do work outside the tackles. Thinking about him with Quinshon Judkins. And then, of course, you had all the legal stuff with Judkins. He's still not signed, right? And it's like, all right, we're getting very close to the season now. I don't want Quinshon Judkins on my redraft rosters.
Finishing up with Thor Nystrom next, we got to get his opinions on his guy, JJ McCarthy over there in Minnesota, and some sleepers for your fantasy drafts next. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you are a sports fan, you got to have game time in your pocket, because if you ever just decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to go catch the ball game. Last minute, I'm going to take some family and friends, maybe even go solo. Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize, I just want to be in the stands. For me, San Francisco Giants, they're right across the bridge, 10 minutes away. I can get to the yard pretty darn quick, and they call up a prospect I really got to see. Man, I'm going to go get there, and I can get some phenomenal deals on last-minute tickets with GameTime. That's exactly where GameTime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress, not just baseball, not just football, talking concerts, comedy shows. If you ever buy tickets for any of those style events, you got to have GameTime in your pocket ready to go. And I'm always checking it before I buy any tickets to any event. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on, say, food and drinks, maybe some merch, maybe just invite a bigger group to come with you to the ball game, to the concert. And GameTime makes it all possible. GameTime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to first pitch or kickoff or the opening act. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Just download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Obviously, some big-time tight ends and wide receivers. So pass catchers galore here. Whether it's Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland at tight end, you had Golden and Ted McMillan in the first round, and Emeka Egbuka. I love Luther Burden. It's a stacked house there with a new coordinator and a new coach and a second-year quarterback in Chicago. So I don't know fantasy-wise if Luther Burden could pay off, but the talent is there. How are you treating these pass catchers early in your draft, or are you treating them at all earlier in your fantasy drafts right now?
My favorite guy for this coming season in fantasy of all those guys, it will surprise people because it's not a wide receiver, nor is it the first tight end taken. I want Tyler Warren. I don't take this year, I haven't been taking tight ends high in drafts, like the consensus top 4 or 5. I don't touch them. I let other people, jump in ahead while I'm popping the running backs and the receivers and whatnot. The guy higher up in the hierarchy that I will take if he's there for me at an acceptable price is TJ Hawkinson. And then I want Tyler Warren, right? And if I don't get Hawkinson, I'm fine just having Warren be my starting tight end and then mix and match him with another late round guy. Tyler Warren is this year's Brock Bowers. It's the exact same situation. You have a manufactured touch tight end who is awesome running, breaking tackles, awesome after the catch or whatever. A guy where if you can just manufacture him those touches within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, you can derive some sort of offense because he will be your source of offensive efficiency, right? So no matter what else is around it, you can at least get this or whatever. We saw that last year on that dead end Raiders team where they just kept pounding the ball at Bowers. And we knew coming in that the skill set that Bowers had, the end arounds and the jet sweeps and then all the different manufactured stuff you could do for him as a receiver. It's the exact same thing with Tyler Warren. He's a bigger version. He's 3 inches taller. He's 30 pounds heavier or whatever, but he's an awesome run after the catch guy. He's also a run just period guy. They did all kinds of fun stuff last year with him at Penn State. They had a new offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, who there's a funny story about this. The first time that he met Tyler Warren, it came up in the conversation that Tyler Warren had actually arrived at Penn State as a dual threat quarterback. He was a 3-star quarterback out of Virginia. And James Franklin had seen his basketball tape, Tyler Warren. That's why he was like, oh, we got to get this kid. And Will Levis, not long before that, had left Penn State. He had transferred out. So initially with Warren, it was like, Will Levis, his function on those Penn State teams behind McSorley or Clifford he was like the big running guy in the short yardage thing. And so Warren initially was looked at it like that, but they got him on campus and they're like, no, we're going to fill this kid out and make a run for the tight end thing. And he obviously turned out to be awesome. But Kotelnicki, having heard, this kid, he knows how to play quarterback. They did a bunch of stuff last year, gadget formations around the goal, not only around the goal line, but gadget, all around the field with Warren lined up as the quarterback. You can manufacture those tough yards just by having him go berserker. Tyler Warren wore 44 at Penn State because he is obsessed with John Riggins, and he runs like an enormous version of John Riggins. The thing with Warren that I think where he got pushed down the board a little bit to the middle of the first round, his arms are a little bit shorter than you would think from his frame, which the NFL cares a little bit more about. And down the field, we did see him win down the field for sure. We saw him high point. We saw him go up and get it in the end zone. There was an awesome trick play against USC where he started out as the center Tyler Warren was the center snapping it, but he was all the way on the left side of the line. The rest of the offensive line was lined up to his right. Because of this, he was an eligible receiver. He snapped the ball and then just ran a streak route down the field. They tossed him a lollipop. He went up and got it. But the shorter arm thing and the fact that we didn't have a larger sample size with him down the field, but we know he can be the manufactured touch guy. That's what he's awesome at. The Colts need to manufacture offense. And now with Daniel Jones, a guy where the thing he's good at, it's within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, the timing concepts. Like the rest of it with Daniel Jones, either you start to stretch him a little bit, but we know he can do that. And Tyler Warren's going to help out with that. So I think Tyler Warren gets over 100 targets this coming season, and I think he has a big year.
And Shane Steichen's the coach. I mean, are we talking about a tush push or two with him carrying the rock? Some of those 1 yard touchdowns are real nice for your fantasy teams.
100%, especially if they don't want to see Richardson again. You don't want to have Daniel Jones running some of those concepts. I mean, Daniel Jones got nicked up in the past. I don't know, if that would be a part of their thought process too. But Tyler Warren certainly is the best short yardage runner on that roster outside of Jonathan Taylor, right? And so you could do fun things having Taylor line up to his right around the goal line, and have Warren back there in shotgun and just tell the defense, good luck. Like, we're just going to grind at you for 3 downs. We'll get in there one of these times. I think you're going to see that. Tyler Warren will have multiple rushing touchdowns this coming fall. I'll put that one on record.
Love that. And I used to be just a no rookie tight end guy, but man, you've seen recently that there's guys that can come in the league and they can play. And I love the early returns. And it's nice that you can see it early, see it in preseason, and be like, yeah, he's ready. Let's go. So sure. I'm on board with Tyler Warren. If If Crosky-Merritt's not a sleeper anymore, do you have a favorite sleeper now of rookies in your fantasy leagues? A guy that's not really talked about a lot. You can get really late in your drafts, or maybe even that doesn't get drafted at all. That is like, oh, look, this guy was a league winner, and everyone passed on him every single round.
Yeah, I would say too. I would say for a receiver, I would toss out Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton, a Seahawks receiver from Colorado State. I ranked him as a third round prospect. I think I had him 80th on my board. He ended up falling to the 5th round, in my opinion, for specious reasons. He was nicked up his last season at Colorado State. That didn't help him. And then the fact that he hadn't transferred up to a Power 4 program didn't help him either. And he could have heading into that last off season. It was another guy in the G5 that was getting the NIL bags thrown at him. And Torrey Horton decided to stay at Colorado State. And then unfortunately his season ended up ending early because of injury, but that's a guy who can play on the boundary. He's a little bit skinny. He certainly has adequate height, a little bit on the skinnier side. So I think some people were concerned of like, oh, can he get off the line at the next level? His release package is really good. He's getting off the line at the NFL level to be able to play on the boundary against press corners. His ball skills are really good, and it's a really good route runner. He's just really fluid, in control. He understands tempo, keeping his man sort of off the beaten scent of when is that route break coming, and then he's really efficient in it. And then the other thing, Seattle, you look at their receiving core, which was basically blown up outside of JSN. JSN, of course, is the true slot. He's going to be getting a lot of boundary work this year, though. I mean, they sort of have to because they don't have anyone. And then Cooper Kupp coming in, he has to play the slot now. I mean, that's mostly what he's played in his career. You're not putting him on the boundary now. Seattle is going to play 12 personnel offense for sure. But, even in those instances, I wonder if Torrey Horton starts cutting into Cooper Kupp's work a bit more than is anticipated. So you don't have to have Kupp on the boundary. When you're in 3 wide receiver sets, then I also think Horton's got a good shot of getting on the field because at that point his only impediment is MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So, I mean, Torrey Horton can do a lot more than MVS can. MVS, he's always just been the one-trick pony throwing downfield, and Sam Darnold certainly likes to chuck downfield, but I think he's going to like working with Torrey Horton more, and I expect Torrey Horton to steal more playing time this coming season than most are expecting. And then the other one I would toss out, true sleeper, not a guy everyone says sleeper, would be Taj Brooks from the Cincinnati Bengals. And the reason I like that one is Taj Brooks was one of the better pass blockers that we had in the last class. And once again, the Bengals, who have had the NFL's worst pass blocking team the past couple of years, like Joe Burrow, as each fall, he's just a crash test dummy back there. I was laughing or crying one way or the other on, what was it, Monday night when the Bengals played the Commanders on, Monday night. I'm talking, preseason game. And Burrow's running around for his life in a preseason game. And it's like, but whole point being, they didn't fix the offensive line again. But now you're going to have Burrow be back there for 17 games. Your team is led by your passing offense. I believe that Taj Brooks was drafted. They used that 6th round pick on him to get him in on passing downs, to give Joe Burrow sort of like a little enforcer, a little bodyguard back there. Taj Brooks will take care of the first guy through. He just will. It's not going to fix all their issues, right? As far as pass blocking goes, but it will help. Especially for a guy like Burrow that's good at making people miss and moving around and keeping the eyes downfield anyway, it's going to help a lot. So if Brooks indeed wins that job, as I think that he will, you're already on the field. It's going to open up some receiving work as well. I also think you can make a real argument that he is the best short yardage rusher on the team. The other cool part of Taj Brooks' evaluation, he's an all-time bowling ball. He's just like a trash compactor, shoved him down. He's like 5'8", 225, 230. And it's just all muscle, right? And he's agile. He had some of the best agility drill scores that we had at the NFL Combine last April, both in terms of 3-cone and the shuttle. So that's the dichotomy there. What he doesn't have is long speed. Taj Brooks is not explosive at all, but he has the power. He has the contact balance, and then he can also make you miss or do one of those things that turn in the flush tackle attempt into the off angle attempt that then he runs through. So I think he, between touchdowns he gets around the goal line, between some of the passing work that he could siphon, and then of course if Chase Brown ends up getting nicked up, I think Taj Brooks the guy that assumes the workload then.
I mean, phenomenal stuff here, Thor. In time, and I know you're a Minneapolis guy, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk my listeners into drafting JJ McCarthy in their fantasy leagues. Like, what are we talking about with JJ McCarthy this year? And how good can he be? How good do you think he actually will be?
Yeah, JJ, he's come up. I mean, when it started last spring, you saw the too early fantasy rankings. It was egregious. Like at that time, he was like QB, mid 20s or late 20s, and now it's come up to last time I seen it, was it late teens or maybe inching towards mid teens? As far as like in the ADP, I still think he should be up around 12, 13. I think is objectively fair. You look at the history with Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell has never not had a 4,000-yard thrower as a play call, as an offensive play caller, right? Even the year, or I'm sorry, as a team, right? There was the year where a couple years ago where Kirk Cousins got injured. Then you had a couple games with Josh Dobbs, when he didn't know the playbook. You had a game or two with Nick Mullins, stuff like that. But still, they threw for over 4,000 yards. You still have the awesome supporting cast. You could argue that it's the NFL's best or right up there, top three. Obviously, Jefferson, Addison, TJ Hawkinson's going to get a ton of work this year. And then you fixed your offensive line. The Vikings had a terrible interior offensive line the past several years. Now they're going to have one of the NFL's best because they swapped out all three starters. Two big money free agent acquisitions, both from the Colts, Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. And then you use your first round pick on Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, the other guard spot. You have the awesome offensive line in front of you as well. The Vikings are the offense. It's been moving this way. They've been working towards this. O'Connell wants to run more. It was hard the past couple of years because the interior offensive line was so bad, but you fix that now. And then you also have a dual threat quarterback. That's the other point I want to make about McCarthy, but there will be more running on the early downs, but McCarthy is still going to get his as a passer. And I think that there's a real shot. The offense as a whole is better. In fact, I would anticipate it than last year. I think you're going to have more scoring opportunities there. And the thing that people need to keep an eye on is around the goal line. McCarthy, his legs are going to be used. We have already, this was a supposition of mine, but I've been down to practice in Egan, and we have seen this firsthand. Jordan Mason's going to get all the work around the goal line, and they have concepts where it's like, handoff up the middle to Jordan Mason. They'll give that look, or not. Now we'll do a counter or whatever. And then later in the game, same look, but now JJ pulls it and he's going around the right side on a bootleg concept. He's really good at making decisions out there on the perimeter. It's one of the best things at JJ's game. You can either rifle that ball in, try to throw for your touchdown, or we've seen him doing this, just taking it himself, tucking it, and then crossing the goal line. He's going to have more rushing touchdowns than folks are accustomed to seeing from Vikings quarterbacks. I think you sort of bake all this stuff in. Objectively, all along, JJ McCarthy, in my opinion, should have been ranked in fantasy for this coming year. Quarterback 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. So he has been super duper undervalued to this point. It keeps going, getting closer and closer. But if in your draft he is not being drafted there, that's where I would pop him.
Phenomenal. I'm pumped to watch JJ McCarthy and how that looks this year, because I was really excited about him as a prospect, and then looking good early before he got hurt last year. So super excited for it, and excited to see what's next with Fantasy Life. Let us know where we can find your stuff and what's going on over there, Thor.
Yeah, you can check us out on fantasylife.com. I've been going through all the 2026 draft eligible prospects for the next NFL draft class, watching a bunch of tape this summer. I did my top 10 quarterback rankings, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends. We've gotten into the defense now. My next one coming up is front seven. But for anyone out there that's interested, my last one was offensive line ranking. So it's top 12 or so tackles, guards, and centers at each of the positions, listening out and doing the scouting report, stuff like that. But yeah, it's exciting to watch those guys. There's a couple of front seven guys that I really like in this class. So I'm excited that one will be coming out on Monday on fantasylife.com. And check us out. My coworkers are the best fantasy guys out there. Dwayne McFarland, Ian Harditz, Matthew Friedman. They're all great. And then my friend, this was a treat that I didn't know was going to happen. But when I joined Fantasy Life, when they hired me right around the same time, they had hired my friend Paul Charchian, who is basically the godfather of guillotine leagues. And for folks out there that have never played guillotine leagues, it's so fun. Like, it's a different way to play fantasy, but like the low score every week gets cut, and then their roster gets put up on waivers. So every single week, like, I love auction drafts. Certainly way more than just the snake drafts. the having essentially a mini auction every week in season is probably the coolest thing about guillotine leagues. It just adds a layer of strategy there. It's really cool. So you can come and play guillotine leagues. And I think we're the only site that has ranking specific to guillotine leagues. That's been Charchian's long time thing. But yeah, come and check us out at fantasylife.com. And you can also see me on Twitter at ThorKU. Fantastic stuff. Thor Nystrom, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. And of course, check out Fantasy Life and everything Thor is doing over there. Fantastic stuff. And can't wait to see that 2026 draft work as well. Of course, Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.